here, and welcome to the fourth episode of The Stir, conversations with people who inspire, fascinate, and bring us joy. I'm Trish Muyco-Tobin. Well, one way to describe today's guest is that she's an enigma to me. And I say that because while she may be a relative newcomer to St. Louis, for many newcomers to this area, she's a very familiar face, and I will have her describe that to you a little bit later in the program. For now, let me introduce you to Susan Gobbo. Hi, friend.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks. I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me here.
Oh my goodness, I am so happy that you are with us. You and I met maybe just a few months ago.
Yeah.
And one of the things we have in common is that you and I are both immigrants to this country, and that's how we bonded. You are a native of Brazil.
Yes, I am.
Yes. And the town where you came from is?
Well, I came from a little town in Brazil called Piraju. It's like 25,000 people, but I lived in São Paulo for many years.
Okay. And you and your husband, Mauricio, made St. Louis home in 2008, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a little over 10 years now.
Yes.
Okay. You and I had talked about this. Each immigrant, of course, has a unique story of coming to the United States. But for the most part, there is a common thread there, and that is this story of the American dream. But for you, it's a little different because you didn't really come here initially in pursuit of that American dream. You didn't come here to stay. No. You had a life in Brazil. So explain to our viewers and our listeners what brought you to the United States.
Well, I used to answer what brought me here, it was love. Because I came here because of my husband. So he works for a company, and the company asked him to come over here. So he was transferred by his company, and I came following him. So it's about love.
So I believe when we first spoke about this, the job offer from Mauricio was initially just temporary, correct?
Yes, we came. So before we came over here, he was working in this company and moving around, like 3 months here, 3 months there, in Switzerland, Mexico, Canada, Germany. We came with the mindset to stay a year and a half.
And to you, that wasn't easy at all because you had a full established professional life in Brazil.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about what that was.
Yeah. So in my I was in a position in my life that I was in the top of my career. So I am physical therapist. I used to say I was because I'm not working as a physical therapist anymore, but
you were at the top of your game.
Yes. I was working in a very well-known hospital in São Paulo, one of the best in Latin America, and I was coordinator of the ICU. And so I was here. I said, I cannot grow anymore. I am in the top. But for Mauricio, he was like, he had some gap. So he said, I need to have experience abroad in order to grow in my career.
Mm-hmm.
So as a family, you think, okay, what's good for us? So maybe we go there, spend some time, and when he comes back, he's going to be in a better place.
To be able to expand his horizons career-wise.
Yes.
I mean, for you, let's paint a picture here. You were so at the top of your game that there was really no other way for you to grow. You had written academic books and everything already about your profession.
Yes.
And there really was no other way for you to go. You were at the top.
Mm-hmm. And so we said, okay, let's give a shot and let's go. And by that time, I was writing my second book in physical therapy. So I said, it's going to be a good time for me, a sabbatical, that I'm going to take a break and thinking about like how to write this book. Perfect, But life changes, right?
Okay, so let's fast forward to the time that you find yourself in the United States having to contemplate staying here for good. And here's Dr. Susan in the United States, all of a sudden having to become a resident of the United States.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, that's the important point because I remember when we talked, like your identity, when you build your identity through the years. So you are in your family and then you go study in your college and then you pick your profession. So all this is part of your identity. So suddenly I was here. First of all, I was able to read in English but not speak. So it was something that I had to learn, go to school and learn. So anytime that you start speaking and you have accent, people assume that you don't have education. And also, every time that I was with my husband, they'd say, oh, this is Mauricio's wife. This is Laura's mom. But how about me, my identity? I'm Susan. And suddenly I'm nothing, And the feeling that you are not useful anymore. I had a crazy life, working in a hospital, and suddenly I'm at home doing nothing. So what's my value to this community?
And this was your early years in the United States of America in St. Louis as you were establishing your life here.
Yes, but in the beginning, it's interesting because it's not easy because you have to learn a lot of things. But as a human, we like novelties, we like new things. So in the beginning, it's like a honeymoon because everything's beautiful. You are exploring the things. Wow, this is a dream. And it's like when you go in vacation.
Yes.
Everything's beautiful.
Everyone loves to travel and discover things.
Yes.
But once that reality settles in, and especially for you, you're used to a busy, professional, fulfilling life.
Yes.
And then what happens?
Yes. So your self-esteem, you are low. You start missing your country, your friends, your family, your routine, going out, doing something, meeting people. But takes time, sometimes 6 months or a year to start realize that it's missing something. There is a gap inside, but it's hard to understand what is that. It's very interesting.
So this brings us to this term that I consider you to be an expert in, cultural shock. And my first meeting with you was the very first time I had heard this term, but it is something that exists. My goodness, does it exist? So what is it and how do we deal with it? I mean, how did you deal with it?
Well, so you said the right thing. Nobody's is aware about the cultural shock. It's something that even people who travel, they don't know. It's something that you read, but you think, oh, this is not me. This is not going to affect me. But it's true. It's a process. And everybody that moves abroad, they go through this process. And some people, they feel like in a deep context, and some people, they go like more superficial, But everybody goes through this process. And what I see when I talk to these international women, they don't know about that. So there is this process. So you have like 5 phases. And the first one is honeymoon. It's like a wedding, so everything is beautiful. But the second one, you go deep in the bottom, and it's a crisis. So in this time, it's like you are being in a depressed mode. So you don't see good things and you start missing your life in your country. But if you don't know that's a process, you think it's your personal problem. So and I talk to them and they say, oh, that happened to me. And I thought I was wrong. I had something wrong with me. And I say, no, this is part of the process. You are losing all your references from your country. You are losing your familiar knowledge about the environment. And you have to learn how to survive, how to read the environment, how to act, how to react to these things. So it's huge. And if you have, especially these expat spouses, you have to give up your career, you are losing this part of your life too, your profession, your career, so the self-esteem, so it's all together. So it's normal to feel that. Sometimes I tell them, it's normal. Don't feel that's you. You are part of the process. Suddenly you are going to leave this crisis and you are going to recover and to accept a new culture and to adapt.
I know that for you, this has been not just a personal project, years in the making, but you actually are doing this as part of the St. Louis Mosaic Project. And if you can tell me just briefly how this has expanded into the work you do now for the St. Louis Mosaic Project.
So, as I said, I start realizing that something was like wrong with me. But I am not that person that stay home crying. I never been like that. So I'm a curious person. So I said, okay, I'm not feeling well and something is happening to me. And I start going to the computer and trying to find what is that in expatriation process and moving abroad. And that's why I learned about the cultural shock. And I start going deep in this subject, and I wrote a paper about this and how the expat spouses, they need some help. And when I went to the meeting in the St. Louis Mosaic Project in 2014, I had this paper, and somebody brought me there because they said, I'm sure you are going to love this project because there is everything to do with immigrants. And when I went there, I got in love with the mission, and I said, I want to be part of this project. And I met Betsy Cohen, who is the executive director of...
And she seems to be everywhere.
Yes, she's an amazing person. She's very talented and a great leader. So, and I talked to her about my project, and she said, okay, why don't we start doing something to help this family, these spouses that come over here in the same situation, because now you learn, you have your experience, so you can help them. And St. Louis Mosaic Project is an initiative to transform the region into the fastest growing metropolitan area for immigrants by 2020 and promote regional prosperity through immigration and innovation. So they have different programs to help international people, students, people who want to start a startup or any kind of relate to international people living over here, to welcome these people over here, to attract and help them to stay in St. Louis. So that was my connection, and so I had this idea. First of all, I started helping one by one. So Betsy would call me, and Susan, I have some Brazilian family. Can you talk to them?
But now you're involved with a lot of different nationalities and ethnicities and a lot of immigrant groups, and you have your hand in a lot of the projects that St. Louis Mosaic is involved in. I just have to say, though, that so you interact with a lot of these ladies who are coming into the St. Louis community. And I'm just looking at you right now and just knowing your backstory from about 10 years ago. And just looking at some of our interview notes from a few months ago. And you were telling me, when you were at your lowest point, and just talking about, how does one delete their past when you were not feeling very useful and you were depressed and you didn't feel like going out and you just wanted to stay home. Do you see that now in some of the spouses as advice from someone who's been there?
So I have a group. It's called International Spouse Meetup Group that I started 3 years ago with a friend, but she moved away from St. Louis, so I kept this group. And now we have 440 women.
440. Okay.
From 66 different countries.
All right.
It's wonderful, and I love this group. And there is a bond because we share the same experiences. But when they come to the group, they don't know anything about cultural shock, about this crisis. And when they come, they seem all happy, smiling, they are beautiful, they are amazing. But I can capture this person is right in there. I invite them to have a coffee. Or I invite them to go out for, let's go to the museum, let's do something together. And I start bringing this conversation, but not very, I don't go deep right away because they can just go away and say, no, I don't want to keep this conversation. So I start talking about myself, my story. And then they relate, and then they start being open to me. They start saying, oh, I am feeling the same way. Oh, I'm there. So it's, if you are vulnerable enough, people start trusting you. So that's it's the one-on-one. Sometimes even if you have a group in a place, and I can notice that person needs help, I go there, I sit beside her, and I start the conversation. And after I feel, okay, this person needs a social environment, or this person is looking for a job, or this person needs something meaningful, not really a job, but this person needs to volunteer to feel useful. Mm-hmm. So I can get this in there. I don't know. It's something that I can pick.
Well, I just have to say how lucky for this group to have someone like you, because that is the kind of person they need, somebody who's been there.
Interesting, because when I wrote a paper, I was studying, taking classes at St. Louis Community College. So this paper was a result of this class. And she asked me to write something from the bottom of my heart. And she gave me a lot of subjects, but I didn't like any. So I said, okay, I can write something that I want to write. And that was the paper. Through this paper, I met Betsy in Mosaic. So, and when she saw the paper, she said, Susan, I can see you as a consultant going to the companies and explaining this project to them. And I said, really? No, I don't think so. I'm a physical therapist, but I'm doing that nowadays. It's so interesting.
Talk about serendipity. You were at St. Louis Community College taking classes to learn the English language, and then talk about it, that's saying something about expressing what's in your heart. And here we are today. Thank you so much, Susan Gobbo, for being with us on The Stir.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. And there you have it. Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Stir. See you next time.
Bye.